Ronald, your area of expertise is peatland. Why is this important? Why now? Why should we be focusing on peatland as part of our transition strategy?
My area of expertise is tropical peatlands, and so that's focusing. Basically, my research has been in Southeast Asia. And why are tropical peatlands or peatlands in general important? Is they store a huge amount of carbon, not only below ground but also above ground where the forest is. So in that sense, it provides a carbon store which you do not want to get rid of because of the changing climate.
And then how is this peatland currently used? Is not a livelihood for people for farming and things? Are you promoting to protect all peatlands so that nobody could use this land?
Well, parts of the peatlands are being used and being developed in the past. Since basically the 1980s, that development started, where oil palm and acacia trees have been planted for paper production. But a large part is also still intact, so meaning that no development has been going on, and these peatlands are still being forested. So they still conserve a high biodiversity, both in flora and in fauna. So, but partly it is developed, and I'm not saying that all of these peatlands should be abandoned, right? Because people are living there, people have their livelihoods. So it is crucial to manage those lands, and where it is possible, and where it's possible where it's neighboring still intact peatlands, that some kind of a buffer zone is created to at least protect those areas which are still intact. Because when you develop peatlands, that comes with drainage. So you need to de-water the organic material before anything can grow there. But by doing that, the hydrology of those peatlands it's all connected. So it has an impact on the surrounding landscape. So ideally, you would want to create a buffer zone around those. But of course, you do not want to forget the people getting a livelihood of that. So if you want to restore those areas, you would have to create an alternative livelihood for the people, but also the companies working on those lands. So that needs to be arranged.
And then we're talking about large scale peatlands. What new innovations have you seen in this space in order to conserve and restore these large scale areas?
Well, I have been involved in a few projects, also research projects in Indonesia, but also in Malaysia and in Brunei, so basically Southeast Asia, on mapping these peatlands. And because it's a huge scale, we are talking about tens of thousands of square kilometers of land. And we have been using a new technique, or a relatively new technique, which is called LiDAR. And we have been using that to map those peatlands. So where are they? What is still standing on those areas as a baseline, basically to provide information on how would these peatlands be best managed, considering also, again, the landscape aspect.
And some of this technology, the LiDAR technology, I wonder if you could just give us some insight into the work you're doing there.
Yeah, so LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging. It is an instrument which is usually attached to a helicopter or an airplane, sending light beams, lasers, to the earth, to the surface, and the time it takes for the beam to come back to the instrument is a measure for the distance. So the technique allows you to very accurately measure surface elevation, but also vegetation structure, And you can also measure water levels actually in drainage canals. So that is extremely useful information which you need for proper peatland management.
And where are you seeing this being applied around the world? Are you seeing any key developments in restoration? Could you give us maybe an example of that? And are you seeing governments and the private sector working together?
Yeah, well, peatland restoration in the temperate regions, that has been going on for decades. But in the tropical regions where I've been working the last 20 years, that is relatively new. The last few years, of course, there's a lot of attention going on. And in Indonesia, we are working on a project together actually with the National University of Singapore, which the program is called International Integrated Tropical Peatland Research Program, where we are looking at a plantation landscape which is being restored. And we have been using the LiDAR technique. We have had repeated LiDAR flights over those areas to see and monitor vegetation development. And we are now also going into a more detailed level of measurements using a drone, so we can have more repeated measurements over there. And we are monitoring what is coming back. So it's a huge range of researchers which are being involved. Me, myself, from the remote sensing part, but we have ecologists on board, but also microbiologists, the soil scientists, really to bring it all together and give the best possible science to gather the information which is required for successful restoration. Because all sites are different, and so far restoration has happened in the past, in the recent 10 years, but it has been done with limited knowledge because there was not so much knowledge on tropical restoration available. So we are gathering that information. And it is going fast. That's going to be crucial to do it successfully, because also restoration, it takes a very long time to materialize. It's not just a question of 1 to 2 years and then you're done. You need to continue monitoring that.
And what do you see the role for the private sector to be in this space? Because normally it's government incentives, government policy, or its key stakeholders' influence. What can the private sector do to be more proactive in this space?
I would say, provide positive examples. I mean, we're doing this research project with the private sector. So it's, get the ball rolling. The advantage the private sector has is that they have long-term visions, right? Long-term strategies. I'm not saying that government doesn't have that, but they are usually shorter term. So while government regulations, of course, need to be followed, I would advise the private sector not to wait for government regulations, right? Just get the ball rolling, as I said. That would be my advice, but at the same time also invest in good data, in proper data, and the LiDAR data I mentioned, they are incredibly accurate, but also expensive. And we have been trialing with that, and you don't need to fly full coverage. You can use partial LiDAR. And we've actually covered 2/3 of the peatlands in Sumatra Island in Indonesia using this partial approach. So as I can show you this on the map, what you've seen here is that a 3D image of the East Sumatran coastline covering 3 provinces, and it covers about 71,000 square kilometers. That's, I'm from the Netherlands. It's twice the Netherlands. It's enormous. And what you're seeing here are the shapes of peat domes clearly coming out of this landscape. And the green colors you see here on the top panel, they are an indication of where there is still forest in 2012. And what you see here, the deep peat areas cover 60% of this area. And large peat domes here, they have peat thickness deposits of up to 15 meters. So that is really a huge carbon store. And yeah, the good thing is if you want to protect that carbon store, you also protect the forest on top of it. Because we've done an analysis and 95% of the remaining forest in these provinces, in the lowland areas, they are covered by on the peat dumps. So that's, yeah, my first thing would be to conserve those areas, as they provide an opportunity to store and to conserve that huge carbon stock.
So we've got two parts here. One is conserving the existing stock, and the other is restoring the degraded stock. Can you maybe just walk us through what the future holds with cooperation from the private sector and governments? What's your aspirations for peatlands?
Yeah, I would say my glass is half full. As I shown in the map before, is that huge amount of tropical forests are still intact in Sumatra in this case. So yeah, conserving those areas is a no-brainer, I would say. Government, but also the private sector, which is on those lands, please, all your efforts focusing on conserving those areas, as that will make a huge contribution. So that is really, yeah, my first priority, I would say. That's why we also always keep on mentioning this in our scientific publications. Please, yeah, focus on those areas, conserve those areas, make sure they do not get lost. And as a second, yeah, try and restore as much as possible the already developed areas. But then again, also taking into account, of course, the activities which are all going on. I mean, sometimes it is not feasible to restore an area. But if you also, again, want to prioritize, then first focus on those developed areas which border directly on the intact and to be conserved peatlands. That would be the second priority. And then the third priority, yeah, restore what is left. That's and yeah, there is not a lot of time, right? That's the developments go very, very rapidly, and also sea level rise. That doesn't stop, and it takes some time to halt the carbon emissions from the peatlands. So we're all on the clock.
Thank you for that, Ronald. The sense of urgency is truly felt in your words of wisdom. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Gurjit.